Hey, folks, welcome to Kaiser's Castle. Uh, Somewhere in an undisclosed location in the United Kingdom, I have Baz with me. And right before we started this show, sometimes the pre show is more fun than the actual beginning of the show. And I don't think I need to put any theme music on this, although I will still push my buddy's product. I always say go to Axion Ghost on YouTube and you'll enjoy his music. Several of them I use often. We were talking about our experiences. I'll give mine first, and then Baz is going to take it from there. When I was young, I used to be a metalhead. I was slamming my head, listening to punk music and also ska back in the day. And anyway, so me and my wife board a flight from Munich to Gatwick, England. And my wife's a penny pincher. She's awesome like that. And so what she did was she booked us on this charter flight. Can't remember the name of the airline, anything like that. But I've got the ticket somewhere. I'm just not going to dig it out. I'm too lazy. Anywho, on the air, as we're flying, that 30,000 feet, this is your pilot, Bruce, speaking. We're at 30,000 feet. We should be landing in Gatwick from Munich in about, I think it was like an hour and a half or 45 minutes. It wasn't a long flight. And then at the end of it, when we landed, and, we were getting off the plane, and all the pilots and stewardesses line up, and they'll shake your hand, say hi to you and stuff. I see on it, name tag, B. Dickerson. And I'm like, you're a Bruce Dickerson from Iron Maiden. He's like, smiles and nods. And I'm like, you're in Iron Maiden. He's like, smiles and nods. Now my wife's in front of me, but she's already debussed pretty much. Because, the captain's the last person you see. And I'm like, I saw you in Columbus, Ohio. And he smiles, Iron Maiden. And he's like, yes. And so on this portion of Drinking with Baz, Baz will tell you an epic story. And that was my small brush with greatness. My wife asked who it was. I told her she was not a metalhead. And she thought that was pretty cool that, our pilot was a former rock singer or maybe still rock singer. I really haven't been keeping up with them. Baz, baby, this is all you now. I'm muting. Entertain.
Cheers, brother. Raise a glass to you, mate. Raise a glass to all those that are listening, if there is anybody out there. Yeah, it's just sort of like a reflection on what Shuff said there. I've been a massive Iron Maiden fan since I was about 6, 7 years old. The first sort of the intro to like the Number of the Beast and Run to the Hills and all that good stuff. That's what got me hooked at a young age. And I was always brought up in sort of like that sort of that world of rock music from like Black Purple, Sabbath, Hendrix, and that good stuff. And obviously, I started off on the softer stuff, and I still am to this day a very massive sort of metalhead, headbanger and all that good stuff.
Hell
Um,
yeah.
hell yeah! And yeah, it's so I've always, like Iron Maiden has always been my sort of like number one band, my go-to band. Um, One of these geeks that can just listen to the first second half of any song and then sing you the entire lyrics of that song, and go along with the guitar solos, and all the drum beats and stuff like that. And so I've always been a massive fan. I've seen Maiden, God knows how many times. I've lost count. And actually, as I'm sitting drinking now, I'm drinking from a massive Iron Maiden pint glass. So I'm a bit of a fanboy.
Nice.
Anyway, so we were flying back from Afghanistan a good few years ago, about 10 years ago. And I've always known that Bruce Dickinson is a massive sort of advocate for the armed forces. Obviously, certainly the British armed forces because he's been a Brit himself, but he's just a massive advocate of armed forces, and it all comes from his family history. His father was in a regiment called the Yorkshire Volunteers, which is actually the predecessor to what my unit was until a few years ago. Um, so again, it's always had that link with the armed forces and stuff like that. And a good few years ago, he had throat cancer. If the listeners are into Maiden and stuff like that, if they didn't know, Bruce had throat cancer. So luckily, and thank God, he got over it. But in his sort of like rehabilitation, he wasn't allowed to sing. And those who know Iron Maiden and Bruce Dickinson know why he's called the foghorn, because if his massive voice, his massive vocal range, the guy doesn't need a microphone. So
Hell
in his sort of
yeah.
yeah, in his rehabilitation, he was like he gets itchy feet. You know what I mean? He's one of these guys that needs to be kept busy at all times, and he's a commercial air pilot. Um, so what he decided to do was like as a thank you, as a return, you know what I mean, thanks to the British Armed Forces for obviously doing what they're doing out in Afghanistan and Iraq, was to fly them back from operation theatres. So I remember I got on a plane in Kandahar, and obviously we got on the plane from Helmand province back to Kaf. Then Kaf we fly to Minad, and at Minad that's where we got on the chartered aircraft and flew back to the UK via Germany.
Right.
So I got on this aircraft, just not looking forward to this fucking 8 or 9 hour journey back to the UK, because I know how much of a fuck about it is. You know, actually getting off the fucking runway in Minad and then landing in Germany. Um, it was either Hanover or Ramstein we were landing, um, and then back to the UK. So I'm sat on the aircraft thinking, my battery had gone dead on the fucking handheld. I can't remember if it was a Game Boy or whatever in my hand, so it wasn't looking good. I'd read the book that I'd had in my bag, so it wasn't looking good. It was going to be a long journey, a very boring journey. Anyway, so digressing, the captain comes over the tannoy and says, "Oh, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome aboard flight fucking whatever it was. I'm your captain." And before he even introduced himself, I was like, I fucking know that voice. I recognize that voice. So I've
Yep.
heard it a million times before, live and on cassette and CD and all that good stuff. And I was like, fuck, that's Bruce Dickinson. So I'm nudging the guy next to me who has no fucking interest in Iron Maiden or doesn't even know who Bruce Dickinson is because he's a fucking Philistine. Um, and I was like, that's Iron
Yep.
Maiden. And he's looking at me with a fucking strange look in his face. And at this point, I'm like a 15-year-old fucking girl in front of Justin Bieber. I'm like, that's fucking Bruce. That's Bruce. So one of the cabin crew comes down, and I say,
Yep.
is the pilot Bruce Dickinson? She looks at me and says, yes, it's Bruce Dickinson. And she started like raising eyebrows, like, do you know who Bruce Dickinson is? And I was like, yeah, yeah. He's like, only the fucking lead singer of the greatest band on the planet. Is there any way I can fucking
Hell yeah.
like send my thanks forward for me being a pilot? And she goes, oh, I'll send you thanks for. So she goes to obviously the cabin at the front, like the cockpit. Obviously knocks on the door. And fucking says, oh, there's obviously they can open the door because there's not much threat of us fucking taking over the aircraft because it's got 300 fucking soldiers on board. You know what I mean? We're low risk
Yep.
security, you know, flying from Minad back to the UK. So obviously she gets access to the cockpit. So there's a guy back there who said he's a fucking massive fan. So she comes tottering back down a couple of minutes later. She just taps me at the shoulder. She goes, oh, do you want to come to the front and have a word with him? So at this point, I'm fucking like, oh, you know, this is fucking amazing. I'm going to meet Bruce Dickinson. So I get off my seat,
Epic.
fucking thumbs up to a couple of my friends who knew who Bruce Dickinson is and the massive fucking Maiden fans. And they're looking at me going, is that fucking Bruce? I'm like, that's Bruce. And they're like, oh, you lucky fucker. Because obviously they're not thought about it. They're just sat there like awestruck that Bruce Dickinson, the fucking legend that he is flying our aircraft. So I go to the front, fucking. He introduces himself, and I'm like, you don't need to introduce yourself. I knew fucking. I was just short of getting on my hands and knees. Well, fucking, we're not worthy, like Wayne's World. And he pulls down the navigator's fucking full down seat and says, "Take a seat, big lad." And I sat there for the entire flight, just chatting shit with the fucking best vocalist on the planet, Bruce Dickinson.
That's fucking epic.
And it was just all about his journey into metal and where he came from and a bit about his dad and stuff like that people don't know about because obviously I'm a fellow, you know, I mean, I'm a soldier. His dad was a soldier. He was just telling me about where his dad had been, how he got into fencing because he's an Olympic standard fencer. He goes all around. Every time he goes around the world, he goes to different fencing clubs to teach. And then how he got into aviation and stuff like that, and some of his side projects, like his a part of a reenactment group that flies around in fucking World War I biplanes, doing simulated
Wow.
battles for air shows and shit like that. And then yeah, just chatting, just general chit chat.
So
I
that
gave him a couple of badges and a couple of my cat badge and stuff like that. So and he signed a lot of my stuff. Yeah, so it was fucking amazing just to be sitting down and speaking to one of my idols because as I was telling him, and it was quite heartfelt, he was quite choked up when I was telling him. I said, look, I've lived a life, I've probably lived two or three lives, and it's always been sort of Maiden's music, certain songs and stuff like that that I can
oh
relate
yeah.
to massively in my life, or have got me through hard times, and it sounds fucking stupid, but just as drugs or alcohol get people through their hard, or religion, or friends and family, I was like, no, Iron Maiden got through me a lot of shit in my life, And to this day, I put shuffle on my phone in my car, and 9 times out of 10, Maiden comes on. And it's the only stuff I don't skip forward
Well,
because it's. I've friends who've died.
right.
Like brothers of mine. Just not so long ago, I lost a brother, and me and him was inseparable. And we were tight with like that. Where brother, where you've been in the military and you've got that one close friend in the military, and you live out of each other's pockets. His mum's your mum's his mum. You know what I mean? You put your laundry in together, and you know what I mean. It's like fucking husband and wife, but your husband and husband just without the sex part. If that closeness. You know what I mean? You're finishing each
Right.
other's sentences. You're on the same wavelength. That it's like having a brother, a twin. And we would constantly just come out with just fucking just singing Iron Maiden vocal, lyrics and stuff like that. And obviously at his funeral, I was obviously I had the honour to stand and give a eulogy for him, and one of his songs was an Iron Maiden song that me and him used to constantly sing. You know what I mean? And to hear that, you know what I mean, and how interested he was that I'd met Bruce Dickerson because he was out of the military by this point. You know what I mean? It
Right.
brought a lot back. You know what I mean? It meant a lot. So it's sort of like Iron Maiden have always been my band, and to meet Bruce Dickinson, it was just amazing. I mean, they're all amazing guys. I'd love to meet them all. You know what I mean? But it was just that the character that is Bruce Dickinson. You know what I mean? He's not one of these people that you can walk into and not be absorbed by him. You know what I mean? It's just
Oh,
fucking
it,
because he's just again he's lived two or three lives,
it's
and his skill set. I mean, he's a fucking established author, obviously an established musician, a world standard Olympic standard fencer, an aviation pilot. You know what I mean? And he's just fucking an amazing guy. You
it's
know.
massively epic. I mean, one of the things that you're talking about blows me away. When you said he does biplane reenacting, then I guess that remember Aces High is
Yeah,
Eddie in a biplane. I guess that's kind of an autobiographical 45. 45 used to be a record, folks, for all you millennials that maybe don't know. We used to spin vinyl back in the day, and me and Baz also remember cassette tapes, which we used to make our fresh tape mixes.
fresh
Uh,
bro.
exactly, brother. It was fresh out the pack. You got to listen to this, my brother. But no, no, I do get what you're saying. Sometimes a little bit of Maiden. There was an Irish guy. I can't think of his name. Oh shoot, the band just left me too. But anyways, how many shitty fucked times has rock music, heavy metal, punk, or even some ska music fucking got us through in the 80s, man? People don't realize, I had one of the first pictures I showed was, you've seen it before, uh, where back in the day we had triangle four-armed AR or M16s and the M16 and the M16A1s, um, fully functional. You know what I'm talking about, and not
Yeah,
with the select fire thing where the select fire was 3 round burst. That was rock and rolled in, but afterwards when I went to core, but before that, and it made sense to go to 3 round burst instead of full auto. Full auto is that thing that's so stupid. You're not putting, it's that final protective line. And you remember one of our PHU brothers died You know, I'm talking about. I'm not going to mention his name. When
Yes, yeah, yeah,
yeah, Doc or not Doc, Chief. You know, I'm talking about.
yeah.
And I still feel some responsibility over that, even though Breezy and other people, you know, talked to him and everything seemed fine. Then all of a sudden, give me some grape jelly to get this metallic taste of my Glock out of my mouth. You know, he. It was a shame his mother found him. Anyways, I don't want to get into all that, but um, going back to the positivity, yeah, man. I mean, keep going on about Bruce because honestly, that man and that band have sliced us through so many shitty, hard, fucked times. I remember when I wanted to get married, I wanted to find the right woman. And of course, you know, when you're looking for it, you know, none of the girls are receptive. And then I looked up, you know, and found my bride. So go on with it, brother.
Yeah, so it's like one of those things like I said earlier, you've got religion and things like that that get you through hardships in life, and I think everybody's is different. Some people rely on other things, some people rely on drink, some people rely on drugs, some people rely on the company around them, some people fall on religion as a crutch, you know. And even though I'm like a hardcore atheist, I'll never mock somebody for their religion if it's used in the right way, you know. And what I mean by the right way, I don't mean by fucking Jehovah's Witnesses forcing it down people's neck, or those fucking spastics, Westboro Baptist Church, you know, or on the other scale of things like the fucking Islamic Caliphate and stuff like that. That's the poison of religion. Like I say, even though I don't believe it all, but I think religion in certain aspects can be a good thing, especially when it comes to supporting people and stuff like that.
Right.
But that's my two pence worth on it, and I won't fucking digress any further. What I'm saying is, Iron Maiden was my religion and still is to a certain extent. You know, I mean, when my son was born, the first fucking thing he was wearing was one of those little romper suits, but it was an Iron Maiden romper suit. You know what I mean? And it's
Nice.
you know what I mean? He listens to all sorts of like music, and he's only a young lad. You know what I mean? So music hasn't become a massive part of his life yet. But I've always, and again, I've never pushed him onto him, but I always play Maiden, and he knows some Maiden songs and stuff like that. And yeah, it's one of those things. I mean, even if like in places like Afghanistan, where you've got different songs, you got every like Vietnam had fucking, I mean, like Hendrix and Jefferson's Airplane and stuff like that, and you know its own soundtrack, and each member or each unit will have their own soundtrack, and or each even call sign, each fire team will have their own soundtrack. And mine was certainly like Maiden, especially going like leaving camp and stuff like that. We had like the Trooper and 2 Minutes to Midnight and all that good stuff going
Oh
on there.
yeah.
Run to the Hills, you know. But like I say, it's Maiden have got such a. I mean, you know yourself, they've got such a massive sort of library to choose from. You know what I mean? Ever since you know what I mean, before Bruce was in the band, you had Paul Diano,
Right.
and then obviously the hiatus that Bruce took, and you had Blaze Bailey, and then Bruce came back, and it's like when I found Bruce was coming back to Iron Maiden, it was like fucking all the Christmases come true, you know, and
Hell yeah.
they're still going strong to this day, and you know. Anytime that they play live, I always try and get to see them. You know what I mean? I'm always walking around in Iron Maiden t-shirts and all that stuff. So yeah,
There's
it's sort of
just
like,
there's
go on.
just something about Eddie, man. Those
Yeah,
Eddie, his their mascot. I'll never forget on the Peace of Mind tour. I saw him on 2 tours, and that was the only times I saw him. I'm not, you know, I don't lie when I talk about music and stuff like that because, or my life, because what's the point? It's fucking gay if you do. But the thing that drove it home to me is I chose one of your photos, right? It's the one with it's daytime photo where you see the skull, and I see remnants of Eddie in that. So you didn't just wear it on your T-shirt; it was on your fucking armor, dude. That's fucking
yeah.
epic.
It's you've got again, and this is I think I can't remember when this conversation we last time about the word alley and its meaning. I don't know if we did actually put that in the show or whether we spoke offline
I
about
think
it.
we spoke offline, so you share as much as you want.
Yeah, so I suppose it's anyway you go. each army has got its own sort of like niches and its little fucking sort of telltales. And with the British Army, it's better, like when I say British Army, I'm talking it's sort of like your infantry now, your what we call fighting troops. Is there's a large sort of subgenre of dress and stuff like that. Like in obviously the airborne troops in the states, you blouse your fucking what we call combat trousers, but you blouse your pants. Um,
Right.
where over here is it's a lot, and it comes from the Second World War. But if you're let's say you're just a line soldier, and then you look to your left or your right, and you see a tier one operator, he looks fucking cool, doesn't he? He's got all the go fast gear. He's got the ops core helmet, the crikey on, the paraclete armor. He's got fucking sub mod rifle, be it fucking M4 variant or be it a Demarco variant or an HK 416. Whatever he's rocking, he fucking looks cool, and you aspire to be that cool because looking cool is fucking cool. But going back to this tale, it was taken from the Second World War. This word that we use, ally, ALLY. And if you were obviously one of the airborne forces that were jumping into Normandy and the places like that, you got all different kit because it had to be lightweight. So it was, as we say, aluminium, or over there, aluminum, um,
Right.
which obviously shorter than that is alley. So if you were airborne, you got alley kit. You know what I mean? Which was different from the normal shit you were given. It was better, it looked cooler. You know what I mean? So it was alley. That's where the word came from, alley. So, like walking around with your hands in your pockets is like a massive no-no in both forces. But the only people seem to do it are special forces. And so, if you're standing with your hands in your pockets and you've got your sleeves halfway up, what we call Hereford cuffs, obviously we know who has a camp in Hereford. You know what I mean? And if your sleeves are
Right.
like sort of halfway up your forearms, we call them
Yep.
Hereford cuffs or hero sleeves. You've got your hands in your pockets. Your sideburns are a bit long. You've got a beard. You know what I mean? You're wearing Merrill boots, or you're wearing, you know what I mean, whatever boots you're rocking, be it Merrill, Caramore, or your off the shelf sort of walking boots.
Oakley
Yeah,
Adidas. Yeah, I know.
yeah.
High
You know
tech.
the boots that the SF guys walk around with. It's called being alley. Now you look at Afghanistan, and there was a comment by an American. I can't remember was he a full colonel or was he a brigadier or a general that said
He was a
the British
general.
troops the British troops are they fight like men possessed, but they dress like a beaten army. Because obviously he saw our guys going out in t-shirts with the body armor over it and nothing much else. You know, bandoliers of ammunition. We look like a ragtag band of soldiers, and it's not because we didn't have the kit. It's just our sort of like, especially I'm talking like the height of the Afghan conflict now, not when people walk around with fucking high vis belts on. You know, I'm talking sort of like between
Yeah,
2000,
that
yeah,
was be
2005 and 2010. So that sort of like 4 or 5 year period where it was, you know, I mean, it was fucking kinetic on a daily basis. So there was sort of like really low grooming standards, especially if you're out in the PBs and the patrol bases and the
combat
fobs. And,
outpost.
yeah, the
Yeah.
fobs, where the highest rank there might be a grizzled old fucking sergeant like myself, or some fucking young lieutenant slash captain that just wants to be a fucking part of the crew and then fail doesn't really give a fuck. Just, you know what I mean? So the grooming standards were fucking very lax. That's why there was dudes cutting around with beards. You've seen some of my pictures, mate, cutting around with baseball caps on and basically looking just
Fuck
like
yeah.
just and I had good friends in the 82nd Airborne, and you know what I mean. And they were looking at us, going, "Fuck, I wish we could rock around like you cunts because you look cool." And it's that like the aura of Ali. Because if I'm looking cool and the guy next to me is looking cool, we're feeling cool, so morale's high. And if morale's for high, we're going to gel better as a unit and we're going to
Yep.
operate better out on the ground. So we always say we have a saying in the British Army and the British infantry, alliness, which is obviously the cool kit and stuff like that. Alliness wins wars, which does, it saves lives. Alliness saves lives, and we'll always wear our protective gear. You know what I mean? We'll always have our helmet on when needs be. We'll always have both plates in our armor when it needs be. it's not to say that we cut corners, but we just have very low grooming standards when we're out on operations.
Well,
And
that's
to like the generals and stuff looking in, they just look, you're a bunch of scruffy cunts. Yeah, but we're hard scruffy cunts and we're doing our job. If we weren't doing our job, then please come and fucking tell us. But we're doing our job to a very fucking high standard, and there's two streams of thought when you're looking at the British military and how we did in Afghanistan. There's those that were on the ground and took over us that know, and those that don't know and look from the outside and think we weren't doing a good job. We were doing something called ink spot theory, purely because we just don't have the manpower. So everything around our patrol bases for a good anywhere between 500 and 1,000 meters was clear. Anything beyond that was fucking bandit country.
of
That's all
course.
that. That's all that we could do. You know what I mean? I remember going to a PB where my cousin was, and he's one of the Marines, one of the Royal Marines, and they took over a town, a small town that was deserted, but it was just fucking inundated with the Taliban. And he said the first day they moved in there, they were getting contacted from 20 feet away in the nearest compounds. By the time he left that place 5 months later, there wasn't a building standing within 350 meters of their PB. So that's all we could do. So it was the powers that powers that be out in Afghanistan said, look, these guys it's like every day was the Alamo. Certainly, I won't mention too many things on air, but there was times where people I know, I'll put it that way, were down to their last magazine and they were dropping grenades over the wall. You know what I mean? That's
Oh
how
yeah.
fucking
Oh
close we
yeah.
were to getting overrun. Um, yes, there was ammo drops, but ammo drops land in the wrong place, and you can hear the fucking Taliban fucking blowing up your shit or taking your shit and using their own grenades against
Yep.
you. Um, so for someone to come out and say, "Why haven't you shaved in fucking a week and a half?" Well, cunt, because I don't have running water. I shit in a hole in the ground. The water I've got is to fucking cook and eat with and wash my fucking ass and balls. You know what I mean? I don't give a fuck. And I look cool. You know what I mean? So leave me the fuck alone. Is there not a fucking stack of rotting bodies fucking 100 meters away? You know what I mean? That no one can come and get because we're fucking brassing everybody up.
Yep.
Leave me alone. So Alinus wins wars. That's the fucking that tale that I'm telling. And going back to Maiden,
It's going back to basics. Here's the one thing I'll allude to. Generals get lost in the sauce because of what they know can be used through logistics. Well, logistics fails. Your drop points prove that, where you're getting water dropped, food dropped. I've seen all of it go to the other side. Not as much as I did during the Obama administration, but that being, we don't want to go
yeah, but
there.
that was
That was
probably intentional by
intentional.
that fucking idiot.
It was. But anyways, that's why I said I didn't really diverge. But the point is, every once in a while, stuff would land other places. You'd try to go grab it, and of course, you put your men at risk because you need that product. But in the end, you know, we've both been places where it's balls, where you're there. You don't really give a shit what other people think because, and some general or politician back home clamoring, the same general that you're talking about was the one that said special forces in the U.S. needed to quit growing their muftis.
Yeah,
And of course, they still do. I mean, it's all bullshit. ODA does what ODA wants. Blades do what blades do. You're not going to stop that shit. And you remember I did a show, and I think me and you talked about it offline before I did the show. Blades do what blades want to, and everybody else can be fucked. And if you don't let them have that freedom, yeah, you know what? People will say, "Oh, you look cool, you look this, you look that." You look, I got a lot of fucking shit I throw up that on my page that maybe looks cool to the fucking uninitiated, but people know what I do for real. And I mean, Baz does. Everybody who knows me knows, and that's all I concern myself with. I don't concern myself with the people who want to know more about me, want to try to. And Baz knows this. I even had a guy try to act like he was me. Remember that clown
yeah,
ass?
yeah.
And I'm sure Baz has had that same experience. We all do. And that's the issue, man. The bigger issue is, and I do want to get back to Maiden too, and some epic shit. But thinking about the stuff you were talking about just now, 2 minutes to midnight, man. That fucking song uh, says it all because in a war zone, in a combat zone, if you're actually functioning and you're actually experiencing everything, everything is 2 minutes to midnight. It could be 2 minutes or 2 seconds or a heartbeat from your last heartbeat. And that's all I'll say. And run with it, baby.
Yeah, it's again the Iron Maiden thing, and what got me onto the word alley and stuff like that is again they did it in Vietnam. You know what I mean? They put Marlboros in the helmets. They had peace signs on the helmets. They had fucking Born to Kill and all that good stuff. You know what I mean? And then they had speakers on the side of helicopters, like the air cav going in, and it was sort of twofold. It's to put the fear of what's coming into the enemy because it's foreign to them. This is just fucking this noise, but to us, it gets that blood pumping, it gets the heart pumping, it's that camaraderie. Looking across, and certainly in my thing, looking across to the next weapons platform, we're going fucking big dust cloud behind us. There's two machine guns, a 50 cal. There's fucking you know what I mean, 3 or 4 operators in there ready to smash somebody's fucking head in. And you look across and they can see you're listening to Maiden, they can hear it, and they just give you the fucking devil horns. There's nothing going to kill you. You're indestructible, aren't you? Let's be honest. You know, you're these harbingers of fucking death, going to
Yep.
lay waste to every fucking sinner. You know what I mean? We're sin eaters. That's what we do. We eat sin so those innocents don't have to. And it's just getting that blood pumping. And again, it was Maiden that was doing that, you know, along with other bands, you know, but Maiden was sort of a staple. It was always our go-to. You know what I mean? At 2 minutes to midnight, especially the Trooper, all that fucking good stuff, and it's just it gets you through. Again, just being Ali in general gets you fucking wins wars. You're looking cool. You're going to kick somebody's head in, aren't you?
It's all
There's,
about morale.
yeah, it's all morale. And morale. Like again, without going too much into it, you know what I do, mate, and I was mentioning it before, but prior to me leaving the service, I taught a lot, and one of the things I used to teach was close target reconnaissance, and I used to my students or the guys I was training, I used to tell them a little story about my experiences doing close target reconnaissance, what it entails, and what you have to do beforehand, like the sanitization of yourself, your buddies, making sure nothing. There's no obviously Velcro is a cardinal
No,
a
no.
sin. It's cardinal sin when you're in a reconnaissance platoon or a sniper. And I used to tell them about a story about the you know me the Triple C guys in Vietnam, no, the cross border guys that used to run recon in Cambodia.
Yeah, yeah, I
Yeah,
know about that.
obviously they had the Indige forces with the Montagnards, the yards, and I used to tell my guys about the depth of how you do reconnaissance patrols. I said you do a close target reconnaissance, and no matter what air assets you've got fucking thermal imagery, you've got satellite fucking taking pictures. Nothing will ever replace that Mark One eyeball. I said, the closer you can get,
That's
the
right.
better. The better, as long as you can do it safely and it's conducive to actually the mission and stuff like that. You're not there to fight; you're there to gain intelligence. And I always used to go into morale. I said morale is a massive one, and I used to put it into like a scenario.
Well,
We will get too much in it. And I used to tell them about the Montagnards. I said, look, I said the detail you can go into reconnaissance is it's not exhaustive. I said the yards used to go in. They used to leopard crawl up to the MVA or the VC positions on the Ho Chi Minh Trail because that's the main issue. That's where the team guys were going into disrupt logistics. They were going into southern Vietnam, and I said the yards used to leopard crawl up and get intelligence, even down to these to collect shit, human shit, and they used to go back, and the youngest yard your Montagne Yard, it was a shit job, obviously because he was still filtering through human shit. And they used to go through human shit, and they used to see if there's like meat fibers and stuff in there. They knew that
What they were
those,
eating, right?
yeah, they knew that those troops were being looked after because they were eating meat. You know what I mean? But if they were eating like rice and those fucking insect shells and shit like that, they knew they were just like conscripts. You know what I mean? Or they were really well, they were very well trained or looked after. Therefore, morale was low. That meant their ability as a fighting force was probably hindered to the fact that they were malnourished, they were probably tired, ill trained. You know what I mean? Poorly led. You know, and that made them a soft target
Hating
or
their
soft.
lives, right?
It's yeah, where they're on patrol and they're looking at the feet, they're not looking into the trees, they're not looking for troop wires or anything like that. And it's all down to morale. Where if they found meat fibers, that told you that those troops were well fed, looked after, probably well led because somebody's so bothered about them. You know what I mean? They've probably got the Soviet kit, ex-Chinese kit, and they were more of a fighting force. You know what I mean? Rather than these fucking conscripts.
Oh
So
yeah.
that's why I used to go into morale. Let's say morale is a massive battle winner. Without morale, you are in a hole, both physically and mentally, that you just don't want to get out of. You know,
Well,
and when that whistle blows or the first round goes off, it's that difference of standing up and going towards the enemy, or staying in that hole until the enemy fucking advances towards your position and sticks cold steel in your fucking centre of mass. You know, and that's why
cold
Alinus
steel
wins.
or hot lead.
Yeah,
Hey,
Alinus wins wars.
yeah. Well, one thing I'll say that to verify this, and I think nobody can. And first off, I'm not a sniper. I'm not special forces. What I do is a very specific thing. But what I will say, going on with this, Baz knows what I do, and so do people who know me. Most others I don't really care about. But I love my people at Kaiser's Castle, my little small channel. I love that. But there's not everything I tell. But the interesting thing to me is I learned this during the first Gulf War, Baz. I'm going to tell you straight up biz. Um, if you, when, like you said with alliness, right? I get it. I totally understand that. And it is about morale, but it's also, there's a difference. Special Forces does it very well. Some CI guys do. Um, some other dudes do, but they're able to be very comfortable in a foreign country, especially a foreign country, not the Far East so much because very few can blend into that, but Iraq and Afghanistan, Baz and I, in a beard and throwing up Quattro and Ergal, wearing the Busta and also the suit. All I'm saying is when we're wearing the garb of the national, we can blend. And it's about low profile. The safest I've ever been was when we actually physically bought a Hilux. In America, they're not sold, Baz. So most people, it looks like a Toyota Tundra over here, but it's not. It's the Toyota Tundra is a bitch vehicle compared to the Hilux. Trust me. Then we had a what do you call that? The those Toyota minivans you find all over there. I can't remember
Or
what.
the highest.
Yeah, the highest, yes. And then we also bought a in Iraq. They had the orange framed fenders on the back and the front. Sometimes the taxi looking vehicles, and we rolled in those. And guess what? Unless we were near a military convoy, never got hit. Lessons learned. You blend with the locals, and you don't show thumbs on the 50s, ARs out the back door, hate truck right there. You go low profile. You get through it that way, and that's a fallacy with the actual troops too. That if the generals learned that they could roll through places, not just with special forces, even normal squaddies in the British terms, but troops in American terms, um, you would have a lot less casualties because even if there's an EFP or they've got a plot to, you know, do some screwing, uh, an up armor's always a bigger vehicle, or it could be a Suburban or whatever, whatever Chevrolet product there is. or Ford. You've seen those too. The Ford pickups, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
They all look like American, and guess what? They all have a turd on the top, and if it doesn't have a turd on the top, it's got the Codex or Codan antenna sticking off the front grill, which the grill has to have that push bar on it. I mean, just roll low profile. You know how many shitty fuck times I've cut through just by being low key with my bros. We spent our own money on that, dude. I think all of us pulled our money, and I think it took us like 5,000 total dollars, U.S. dollars,
Yeah.
in Iraq to roll that low profile. And that's another thing. The government could save money that way, both yours and ours. A small footprint, the least amount of hate you build is the least amount of hate you'll get. And that's my 2 cents. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it proved in Northern Ireland that it's again Northern Ireland, and it's a different animal. Like I've said before, it was it was easy for us to blend in because it was Northern Ireland being a white majority Protestant slash Catholic country. It's part of the British Isles, so I could walk down the street, certain streets, pretty easily with blending in. Um, it was the vehicles that used to what we could call compromise us. And we're always compromised through stupid little things. When I was operating out in Northern Ireland, we used to drive around in a what we call a transit van over here. I don't know if you've got them in the States. It's like the sort of like
Yeah, we have them
workhorse,
now.
like a workhorse of the British sort of workman, be a builder, bricklayer, plumber, plasterer, fucking whatever. They all drive around in white transit vans. So we had a battered old white transit van. We got ladders and stuck them on the top. We had old newspapers and burger wrappers in the front, and we all dressed like fucking builders. And not once were we compromised, not fucking once. And we were working in places like West Belfast, which is the heart of the Republican struggle in Northern Ireland. I mean, this is where most of the
Right.
IRA was situated in West Belfast, and that's where sort of my stomping ground was for a large period of time. And not once was I um, compromised, and my team were compromised. The only time we were compromised is when we weren't using that vehicle. We were using a vehicle given to us by the sort of the military that we couldn't sort of like kick holes in the doors and shit like that. And it was like this shiny fucking saloon car. And it was like, why are you giving me a shiny saloon car with three young guys, all dressed like pieces of shit? You know what I mean? Guys like us don't drive cars like that.
There's one
No,
thing that makes me laugh. Two times I've ever seen cinema get something right. One was they give some guy, I can't remember the name of the movie. They give him a brand new car, and first thing he does is run into some cars in the shop, and he goes, "Now it's good, right?" And it was shiny, new, no bumps, no scratches, lights perfectly aligned. So what's his first thing he does? Bang into some cars to get some paint on him. And now guess what? It's not shiny and new. It looks like everybody's car that's out there. And the other thing that was gotten right, I think it was Lethal Weapon 2. No, it wasn't Lethal Weapon 2. I just lied. It was the one everybody watches for Christmas. It was the second one. Bruce Willis was in it. Die Hard. Die Hard 2,
Die Hard.
where they
Yeah.
had the special forces guys as painters up in the airport, even though they were doing their subversive shit. And they're dressed like what you would think painters would look like. They have the scaffolding up, everything's up, but they're doing a totally different project. And that's the kind of misdirection that you know can be used. Just like you said, burger wrappers in the front, lots of soda cans in the side. The biggest giveaway on like surveillance that a lot of people don't understand is look for the car with peanut shells or what are those called? Sunflower
Sunflower
seeds.
leaves. Yeah.
Their little shells outside a window where somebody's been spitting for a while, or cigarette butts. Uh, that means they've been there and they've been watching something. So you know something's going on. It's about reading the street. And honestly, I think Brits and well, there's more Americans now that can read the street better. But back in my early days, I think probably SOCOM, some intel operators were good at it. not very many, but we had more UMint back in that time than ELINT, which is what we rely on now, which is a fraud. It just costs more money, trying to do pre crime. But my thing about it is that's where I learned to read the street. And it works even in your own country, but you have to have situational awareness. And your thoughts on that, brother?
Yeah, I mean, certainly in today's society where, um, like London is a fucking shithole. There's a lot of things that you read online about London that is massively untrue, but there's a lot of things that you read online about London that is fucking true. There is areas in London that I wouldn't think about going down unless I was fucking heavily armed, and just purely because of the color of my skin. It's like you wouldn't walk around Compton or fucking certain areas in Los Angeles or New York or wherever as a fucking white male with not much hair and blue eyes. You'd stand out a mile, and you become a target just on that alone. You might be the nicest person in the world, but just on the color of your skin or the way you look or whatever denomination you are, you're going to become a target. But certainly in this world we're living in now, people with our background have got sort of a foot up on it. You know what I mean? We're people are learning how to act on the streets and how to blend in, or how to, I won't say operate as such, but how to fucking stay safe. Um, and that's not walking around with a fucking concealed carry or whatever. That is just basically general street smarts that a lot of, let's say, law enforcement slash military have. I want to say military, I'm speaking in my own terms because of people my age and of my experience that have been in the British military tend to have worked in Northern Ireland. Where it's we've had to learn that. I had
Right.
to learn that at a young age. You know what I mean? A very young age. When I wasn't in uniform and I was in civilian clothing, you can't just go around being, yeah, I'm a fucking squaddy, because you ended up in the back of a black taxi and getting taken out to a pig farm somewhere in South Armagh, and you were never seen again. You know what I mean? You were fed to the fucking pigs. So you had to
You
learn how to
became
sort
pig
of,
shit.
yeah, you had to learn how to think on your feet, how to operate, when to open your mouth, not where to go, and stuff like that. And it's not nowadays that certain elements of society are having to learn the hard way. I mean, and it goes down to, I was down in London, and it was, I was with my ex-wife at the time, and with our son, and he was only young. I think he was still in a pram, and we were in an area in London where some of her family live, because she's Irish, but some of her sisters live in London. And we're in a place in sort of like North London that's predominantly sort of Somali, Bangladeshi, Pakistani,
Right.
your non English denominations as such. And obviously there's bad elements in all societies, but the fucking Somali sort of community around there isn't.
It's global. It's off the chain because they look. You and I both know we're not going to pull punches here. The Somali, you can't say certain things, so don't say them. I can say them. I'm an American and I have this freedom of speech. Uh, the most divisive group of people, and it's because honestly their IQ. And there is something to say about IQ. It's because they're not getting enough food, they're not getting enough proper schooling. Their only schooling comes from a madrasa, which you and I both know that's nothing more than a religious indoctrination for Islamicists. And that's a fact. And just like when I got out of the Marine Corps, I frequented some mosque. Some people thought I actually converted because in Saudi Arabia, uh, I got a bunch of books and stuff from WAMI, the World Association of Muslim Youth. And a lot of people don't even know about that organization. And trust me, even the federal government in America doesn't. But they don't realize that's the madrasa. Well, they probably do, but they turn a blind eye to it because it's Saudi funded. But, all this pamphleteering and stuff, and I get the entire religion of Islam. And so I made hookups and friends, local area. Dude, nobody has the connections I have in a lot of places because of this, because I knew where the future was going to go. Look, the first attack by against American troops. This is a fact. This is a fact. I took the report along with Sergeant Rick. That's all I'll say. I'll give a first name. We took the report when a guy drove down Tariq 121. That's one of the highways in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia with a Makarov and shot a bunch of rounds into a unarmored, if you've seen the Hummers that look like a pickup truck with the slats on them, the wooden slats and the aluminum bodies. And they emptied a Makarov into it and wounded a bunch of troops. And so we had to go take the report. They caught every one of them, but that was the first attack on Americans by Al-Qaeda. And they beheaded them in the port of Ras Al Jabal. This is a fact. This is a historical fact. I was there. I know about it. See, that's the difference. You can't, I get so sick of these people rewriting history, and I'm going to tell you why. When you've seen history and you know what's happened, these people that rewrite it, they're idiots because, and that's one of the reasons why I love my little YouTube channel, is because you're getting a factoid, a picture of history. What's a picture? It's a capture of a moment in time. And what's a memory? It's a capture of an event. And the only reason they tear down statues is to make you forget your history. And that was the first attack on Americans by Al-Qaeda. That's a fact. And your thoughts, bro?
Yeah, it's a dangerous game. You're trying to selectively destroy history or erase history. And again, just going back to what you said there, mate. I mean, the only reason, obviously, why I'm being sort of cautious in what I say on certain things is because of my employment at the minute.
And also your citizenship. I mean, let's be honest. When they got somebody going after Sargon of Akkad, who is nothing more than a liberal and a lefty, is because he's running for MEP for the to get everybody out of the Brexit and to continue that. And they're saying he's a hater because he was mocking people online on a show about certain things, and he said a bad word, and yet they demonetize him, they unperson him. This is one of the things they're doing to divide globally. The left, the right, the homosexual, the heterosexual, the black, the white, the Asian, the white, the Asian, the black. I mean, they're doing it. It's being done purposefully. And those who can't wake up to this effect and this fact, they're just ignorant. There are certain words I will use with my brother Vinny, who's a black man from Brooklyn, because we are joking. And we can use those words. He can call me a guinea. He can call me a dago, half guinea. He can call me a boxhead. Anybody on my channel can call me these things. A kraut. It matters not. A half kraut, half dago. It matters not. But see, if you were to do that, they would. If they figured out who you were, oh my God, you'd be the biggest hater in England, in the UK.
Yeah, it's like I say, it's fucking just weakness, mate. It's weakness, and I think it's more sort of it's sort of wrapped around a certain denomination of society. Those with a voice. That's what I'm trying to say. That people are looking out for. I think your general Joe public who doesn't have, when I say doesn't have a voice, but of no public interest. I say a lot of things. I mean, and I've said a lot of things in the past that I've had no comeback. I've only actually been sort of dropped into hot water once in my life, and I know why I said it, because it wasn't so much hate speech, but it was sort of like the hatred towards one person and what I'd like to do to that person. That was sort of taken out of context, and what I mean. And it did come
Right.
down to basically threatening behaviour, which it wasn't. It was just a fucking comment taken out of,
Out of
what I mean.
context, there's no
Yeah,
context.
yeah,
An investigation was done. Somebody alerted somebody. This is the bullshit of it. An investigation's always done, and then they'll say there's no investigation. We just wanted to know. Yeah, no, that means you're under investigation, so that's fine. the investigation's done, realized, okay, well, this person did it for this reason, or maybe they didn't. And this came up with this entire last election in the U.S. Not the last election, but the election that elected POTUS, President of the United States. When President Trump was elected, they had started an investigation, and this is the dirty secret they don't want out. And I don't know if you'll get in trouble with this, but you shouldn't, because I don't know that you know anything about it. But Christopher Steele was a foreign agent for America. Okay, I'm delineating this, and he gave campaign research that was totally bogus, and it was found to be bogus. And yet the FBI, and this is the thing we were talking offline about, two of the largest countries and their law enforcement agencies, the FBI and your guys' version of the FBI, which is
Scotland Yard.
Scotland Yard. Exactly. And they were involved in this because they have the intelligence resources, just like MI5 and MI6. And this whole Five Eyes thing, it's a good thing if it's being used properly. But who is telling anybody right now what proper use is? It's the politicos in charge. So there's an issue going on, and it's even dividing us against our law enforcement, which, that started with Cop Watch and all this other stuff. I mean, and I'm not negating the purpose of any of that stuff. I mean, I think there needs to be oversight, but the media has made oversight become the project du jour. That's what they want to focus on. The person who's being put upon. And honestly, it puts the military, it puts the police in a bad light in a free nation state. And what's the solution? I don't know. More speech, not less speech. Shutting down conversation is ignorant. And we're seeing it in spades in both of our countries. And your thoughts on that, brother?
Yeah, it's certainly over here with the military have a very fragile sort of reputation. That's been called into question recently, and certain sort of situations in the past with Northern Ireland, certain situations in the present with the political sort of backlash. I mean, just to put some perspective on it, there was a video on social media not so long ago by members of one of our parachute battalions out in Kabul shooting simunition at a poster of one of our political leaders. Now, this political leader is a fucking communist. He panders to fucking every terrorist organization in the
I know who you're
world.
talking about.
You, but he's the leader of the opposition, and he's obviously fucking hugely left wing. Now, obviously, all the lefties get hold of this, and all of a sudden, it's like the military are all fucking Nazis. We're threatening to kill fucking politicians. It's just fucking crazy, and obviously, it's damaged the reputation of our military, but only in the eyes of those that don't have a sense of humour. I mean, 10,
Look,
15 years ago, it was a dartboard. It was a dartboard with, I don't know, fucking George Bush's face on it, or whether, you know what I mean, that the unpopular politician was of that day. And did these fuckers have a meltdown because someone was throwing darts at them? No, they weren't. And let's say if it was our current prime minister, the prime minister would have just gone, right, who's these fucking idiots and why is this happening? It wouldn't have gone as big as it had. You know what I mean? People saying, "Oh, like ban the military, they're all fucking Nazis," and it's this fucking this society we live in nowadays. Everything seems to be offensive. Everything
it's a disconnect.
is hate filled. Um, and it's pander to everything. I mean, you look in some of the universities over in the US, and certainly and this shit's bleeding into the UK. That
I know.
to clap is offensive, so they do this fucking this clicking the fingers on thumbs, and I'm just like, the fuck. Since when did fucking clapping become offensive? or because
Hey,
it can offend those who've got PTSD from fucking, I don't know, someone shouting at them 6 years ago, or this fucking just weak-willed, spineless, morally deficient fucking generation of fucking people that we're breeding, and it's not everybody.
it's not
It's not
even
everybody.
it's not even
It,
morally deficient. It's societally deficient. When you
yeah,
have people, look, you and I think if memory serves, you came in right as the Berlin Wall was falling.
yeah,
And then I fortunately came in and we knew what STRAC, stand ready against communists, meant. We knew it was a devolution of our countries. And we were ready to stand against that. And I will always stand against communism because I know what it is, and socialism too. Uh, but I will find out the truth for myself. I won't let others tell me what it is. And I don't tell everybody how deeply I've gone into everything to figure out what's going on. And I know the difference between online LARPing culture and your actual culture and what you believe. Nobody, look, even with social media, you've been on my social media for years, brother. And on my social media, you can't figure me out at all because I fucking throw so much muff fake out, but I also throw some truth out. And those who know me can discern that. If you don't know me, you're not going to be able to, and that's okay.
keeps
Uh,
cunts guessing.
yeah, well, because I knew when Facebook was designed, when I got on it, I already knew how it happened. It was data mining, and that's all it is. So if I want people to think something, I'll throw that something out there. And here's a failure on my part. I would expect, especially people who I've worked for, meaning government agencies, uh, I would expect them to understand the difference. But of course, if a complaint comes, they know the truth, but they still have to visit me. And, you know, one visit's, yeah, okay, I get it. A second visit on a different thing, oh, now I see the setup coming and I got a second visit last week, which was hilarious on a whole different issue, but it made me laugh. I was like, oh, okay, so it's about this issue. Well, I honestly don't know that guy, but I understand the program that, he got caught up in. And I'll be doing a show on that, by the way, with a brother of mine who's the money guy who understands a lot more than I do about certain things. I understand the setup. I understand the man who died, and the man who died during that setup was also in my brother's Marine Corps unit. And he was all I'm going to say about this, I'll tease it a little bit, a border agent by the name of Brian Terry, who died because of a certain project. You guys can look it up. You'll be astounded. When I have Georgios back on, my Greek brother, um, who served in the same Marine Corps unit with him, we will go into detail on it, but not on this show. But so they always want to try to rope you, and you see what they've done to Trump. You think I don't know why things happen? I draw the lines. It's not conspiracy theory. It's if it's an actual conspiracy, and I know what conspiracy looks like because I've seen them, and might have actually been a tad bit involved in it, just like you have, maybe Baz. Talk on that stuff, brother.
What's that, brother? So you were
Uh,
cutting out. Sorry,
cons-
you were cutting out
con-
then.
conspiracy versus conspiracy theory. You know, when you've seen a conspiracy happen, which you probably have. I mean, we all have, if you spend enough time in the government, versus a theory where I think this might be going on. There's a major league difference.
Yeah, I mean, a conspiracy is something that is, as someone with knowledge and maybe even as an inside part, but on the fringe of something that you can look in and you can see something happening that is not aligned with the reason why it's meant to be happening, if you know what I mean.
Yep.
Versus a theory that is usually dreamt up by someone that has no first-hand information. And when I say first-hand, I mean experience of or presence in this conspiracy or so-called conspiracy, like the 9/11 conspiracy, for example. Most of these conspiracies are dreamt up by people that are going off second, third-hand information at best, and they're using various, I won't say nefarious, but various unchecked sources, unchecked science, and stuff like that. Everybody's got their own conspiracies about 9/11 because it's such a large thing. You know what I mean? Somewhere down that line, and both, we spoke on this offline, brother, that there's some fuckery going on in there. You know what I mean? At some point, you know, but to say that Bush did it is just outright ignorance. You know what I mean? Um, that is a conspiracy theory. We can say that the little green men in tinfoil hats did it, and it weighs the same weight as saying that Bush did it.
Well,
Um,
it's the same thing as there was. I mean, honestly, there was on that day. There was two things that are odd to me, and I call it exactly what it is: conspiracy theory. Okay, and that's why it's delineated that way. One was the day before 9/11, they killed off Masood, Amir Masood in
yeah,
Afghanistan, who would have stood the Northern Alliance up quickly as soon as 9/11 happened. But remember, it was a camera crew that killed him on 9/10,
yeah,
and then the next day and sometimes I don't believe. Okay, first off, I have to explain. I do not believe in coincidence. Okay, never do I believe in it. But there happened to be a national security thing going on at that time, and it was about a similar program. Okay, but they do this kind of stuff all the time. They tried to blame Obama for certain things that were going on, but nothing happened, right? I don't like the word coincidence. I don't believe in coincidence, and I'm not saying it was a coincidence, but what I will say, and maybe you'll say and like I said, it's a conspiracy theory, just like when Japan bombed Pearl Harbor. We now know with time and history and all that, we know that the president at that time knew that Japan was going to attack sometime. He didn't know December 7th. Maybe he did. Who knows? But there was only battleships at Pearl Harbor, and all the aircraft carrier, luckily, were out at sea, so they weren't hit. But the Japanese still let loose their bombs. Um, so, you know, like I said, a theory is there was some sort of thing going on that day where something was going to happen. But you got to understand, from my Cold War point of view, this is what we were told during the Cold War. I'm not going to lie to you. World Trade Center, we all knew, had all of the tapes for the Dow Jones, for all of our economy, okay? And there was also gold buried there. It's not at Fort Knox anymore. Well, now it's not even underneath there. But anyways, the point being is we knew that stuff, and it was always said that those tapes would be taken by a helicopter off the top of the rooftops of the towers, but they didn't really worry about any aircraft and that was something because remember, the Spetsnaz, their whole purpose was to raise issues in the Rear Area Security Zone, the RAS. And the problem about that is they said at this time, we had Stinger missiles, man fired Stingers, which protect things. And we also had Patriots. And they were like, there's an entire anti aircraft defense system around New York. Well, we found that to be false. But yet, that was what we were indoctrinated with during the Cold War. So it raises me some questions, but I'm not going to jump off the deep end and say Bush knew about it. I could say maybe there was chatter, but chatter is something totally different than we know this is happening. If this is going to happen, it's a full blown conspiracy. We're going to act. And of course, we would believe the FBI would act on it. We would hope they would, or local, state, other agencies would get involved. But then you had the Gorelick Wall that was erected under Clinton, and she re-erected it under Obama, and that was where intel agencies could not conversate with the FBI. But see, they bulwarked that. They changed that under Obama to where intel agencies could talk to the FBI as long as the FBI had their own intel agency. See, it's all convoluted now, and that's the difference, I think. And your thoughts on that, brother?
Yeah, it gets mixed up with different narratives and different. Remember, obviously, like post 9/11, there was a lot of sort of fucking um, a lot of doors locked, a lot of let's
Right.
get our story straight, because there was certain agencies in the US that just didn't work together. You know what I mean? Massive failings on both
Right.
sides of the fucking river. You know what I mean? With obviously the CIA, the FBI, and just the way that they did the business. It was very sort of like it stung of the Cold War. You know, like this is our no, it's not. It's our jurisdiction. This is you should be doing this. You should be doing this, and obviously the massive lessons learned from that. You know, the massive lessons learned from that fucking
Yep.
tragedy. But it's lessons learned. It shouldn't. They shouldn't have to be learned. You know what I mean? These should have been in place. Um,
Right. It shouldn't have become the dick measuring contest that it did, and it should
no,
never have changed our agencies. Our agencies have become so politicized, and I mean this probably on your side too. You can speak to that, but I can tell you for a fact every American agency was directly changed and not for the better by 9/11.
mm,
And I would love to have thought under Bush when I was still a Kool Aid drinker and a left right paradigm guy, which I'm not anymore. I haven't been that since that time. I believe there's one way, and it's the American way, the way of being an American nationalist, i.e., uh, we're all Americans. So, what's wrong with that word nationalist? Okay, I don't see a problem with an English nationalist who cares for all of his people. E pluribus unum. Out of many come one. As long as those many want to be a part of that one. And the problem I've seen also is this. This is another thing. This goes back to 65, and we talk about Kennedy. We can talk about that here in a second. But Kennedy was one of the first scripters of the 65 INA, the Immigration Naturalization Act. And all that did was allow the third world to inundate America, where it was never like that. It was like, what are you bringing to America? And then you can come in. If you have a fear of your life, you might be able to come in. It gave hope to people, but they had to bring something to their table. 65 said, nah, we're not going to do that anymore. We're just going to let people come in from anywhere. And it wasn't based on race. It wasn't based on anything other before that than what can you bring to the table. But they needed fairness. They needed opportunity. Well, I'm sorry if you're going to be. It's actually something, and I don't know about your country on this level, but it also brought something that we didn't see coming. It brought in Islamofascism. It brought in all the horrors of the third world that they still bring their culture with them. The Somalis in Ohio and in Michigan and also in Wisconsin, uh, they brought their culture in their tribalism. They are very tribal. Good luck for the FBI or the police to infiltrate the Somalis because it's not going to happen
mm-mm.
because they have a sustained distrust and a disdain for law enforcement because they all think everything's Black Hawk Down and it's to put them down. No, it's to try to help their communities, but you're not going to change their attitudes. And you can't break something that's still tribal where they have a tribal chieftain. I bullshit you not. I don't know about your side. You can speak to this. But if police want to talk to somebody, they better know who the tribal chieftain is of that, or they might have some pushback by others than just that guy. And that puts our own local police and our military in a bad situation. Then you get no go zones, just like you were speaking of. Places you won't go unarmed. That's idiocracy in the West because in the West it's freedom of movement wherever you want to go. There might be some dish that I want to eat at a Somalian restaurant. I haven't eaten anything yet that I would go there, but there might be a dish I want to eat there, and this restaurant in this area is the only one that has it, and it's the best one in the world. Well, guess what? I won't go there. That's not the West. That's not classical Jeffersonian liberalism. And what we have now is not liberalism. What we have is this communist left right paradigm, and it's taken to extremes. And, anyways, I don't really want to go into that, but I do want you to talk to. Uh, and honestly, I think on the right, the extremes exaggerated, and on the left, it's underreported. And that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I agree. I agree on that one. It's over-reported um, because the left. I mean, legacy. That sort of legacy left wing. They were always seen as the hippies, and then it was always seen as sort of those sort of walking around with no nukes, no war banners. You know what I mean? The peaceful left and stuff like that. And it's come sort of like 360, and it's come to the point where it's like militant left wing. You know what I mean? Militant liberalism, where motherfuckers are getting smashed in the skull with a bike lock, all because of they've spoken out. You know what I mean? They've got a difference of opinions, and obviously you know that because it happened in the States, and it was a college
Yep.
professor that smashed someone in the skull with a fucking bike lock, and it feels
A
like
communist
college.
professor.
Yeah, a college professor in my eyes is the old guy with the grey beard, the elbow pads on his tweed suit. You know what I mean? With his study or his office that's from ceiling to fucking floor with books and. But that's not the case nowadays. You've got these college professors going into their lecture halls, their classrooms, their study groups, and fucking unloading all this shit on these blank slates, what I'll call blank slates, these young people that have
Yep.
not found their own direction yet. And they're being groomed. Let's be honest, they're being groomed. It's no different from
Right.
I spoke to before about me being groomed by fucking, you know what I mean, right wing um,
Back in the
fucking
80s.
members.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. We're
well,
good.
back in the 90s, right wing members of my unit. It's no difference between being groomed by a fucking paedophile or being groomed by an Islamic fundamentalist fucking organization or a person. You know what I mean? It's no different from one of these fucking extremist mullahs standing up in a mosque or in a madrasa or just in any normal mosque and speaking to young people about the fucking glory of jihad and becoming a martyr.
Yep.
It's exactly the same. These people are impressionable. They are vulnerable, not so much vulnerable people in that they're open to abuse and stuff like that, but it's because they're there to learn. That means their minds are open a lot
Yeah.
more than ours are. And that means what comes out of that fucking idiot's mouth and goes into their head takes effect and it takes hold and it leaves, you know what I mean, impressions that then it becomes this is what we have to do. This and then they go out en masse and they aren't allowed to clap anymore. They have to click the fingers. They have to wear a black mask over the face. And woe betide, someone stands there and says, I don't agree with this, or Trump is not a racist because he's opened up more employment for fucking African Americans than any other
And
president in the
Hispanics.
past,
Yeah.
including the last fucking president that was a naturalized Kenyan.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So this pussy grabbing orange racist has done more for fucking black people in the past fucking 60 years than any other president has done in history. You know what I mean? Apart from the abolishment of fucking slavery.
Hey,
You know what I mean? I sit on the fence with Trump. Sometimes he opens his mouth and I think,
I
fucking,
agree.
well
I
done. You know what I
agree.
mean?
I
Or
agree.
sometimes he opens his mouth and I think, what the fuck? And I'm
I
embarrassed
agree.
for my brothers and sisters in the States. You know what I mean? This is your president running his fucking cockles on Twitter. But then he opens his mouth and some fucking wisdom comes out, albeit
Yep.
in his illiterate terms. But I can see how he does it. You know,
No, it's not illiterate. I mean, he's educated. The problem that makes me really laugh is that he speaks to the common man and the common man and woman. Look, you and I, not literally, but one of our heroes had throat cancer. What's the number one cause of throat cancer there, Baz? Do you know it?
Smoking or drinking,
No. No.
sucking dick.
No. The
I'll
other
be all right
one. The other one. Female. Going down there and cunnilinguist. You
now.
you become
Cunnilingus.
you become a very cunning linguist, right? And but we both love that, right? But we also understand biology. And so what they've done with cultural Marxism is flipped the script. And I remember they were all upset that Michael Douglas, this is years back, got throat cancer. And they said that's the number one cause. And Michael Douglas's wife, Catherine Zeta Jones at the time, who was in Zorro, uh, was so upset that everybody was like, he got cancer by, his tongue
Licking
going
pussy.
somewhere near some pussy, right? And it's stupid. But see that kind of weirdness. Look, it's the same weirdness where these lesbians. This is hilarious. Um, Lesbians and homosexuals. It was famous during the Women's March where this lesbian gets up and starts singing the call to prayer. Allah, I can do it right now. Allah, inshallah, Akbar. That bullshit, right? We've all heard it over in the Middle East. We know what it sounds like. And she gives a call to prayer. Who are the first people that Islamic countries kill?
Fucking, it's the gay people throw them off fucking buildings.
Yeah, and or hang them off of. They've done it off of cranes. I mean, but that's the sickness of this separation. And in some ways, it's a secret separation, but in others, it's very clear. That division bell, Pink Floyd had it right with that album. The division bell has been rung. Since 2014, I've been trying to tell people I don't know how to unring it, but it's got to be unrung because there's got to be a way to bring it back to e pluribus unum, which may never work, okay? Because freshly it's been rung, and these young kids, they will carry it out to the extreme on the left. I don't think the right, we have anything to worry about, honestly. I think the left is the most active that will do something drastic and cause major problems. And that's just my 2 cents. Your thoughts, brother?
Yeah, and again, I refer to that Joe Rogan Experience podcast where he had the ex-Navy SEAL on, and he said, "Look, the left are escalating this to a place that they don't really want to be going, because the left, again, historically, are these peace-loving fucking socialist, communist, whatever you want to call them this week, anti-fascist, predominantly anti Second Amendment group of people." Who happen to be vegan and choose different genders and whatever they want to do with their spare time. But now it's gone into sort of this, again, what I said earlier, this militant liberalism,
Man
where
world.
where these man bun wearing fucking fools are walking around open carrying assault rifles. And again, it's going to escalate to the point where one of these. I mean, let's be honest. What you said earlier on, like the left wing is rarely reported on, where somebody does something on the right wing, and it's massively fucking. I won't say blown out of proportion, but massively publicised. The evils of right wing, you know what I mean? Fascism, nationalism, patriotism, whatever you want to call it. But look at your last school shooting. Who was that? Who was that carried out by? Transgender, fucking left wing. You know what I mean? This fucking idiot, one of these Antifa fucking fools. Now, has that been pushed out? The evils of fucking liberalism? Has that been fucking publicised? It hasn't. But if you walked in there as a part of the alt right or as part of a patriot group or a nationalist group, you know that would be plastered everywhere. Same as it did with the New Zealand Christchurch killings. You know what I mean? It was plastered everywhere that it was part of this right wing fucking militant group. You
And
know,
yet his most stuff that he's ever posted on's been left wing.
yeah,
It
like
doesn't
his
just
manifesto.
yeah,
Yeah,
it doesn't just switch that easy, baby. And you and I know that. Here's the thing that the media forgets: we're not all dead yet. We do have institutional memory still. And that really pisses me off with the Christchurch massacre and several other things that have happened in America since then. There's been a couple other things, and they're all dubious to me because I when you just a cursory look, you know, nah, you're not telling the truth. You're saying they're right wing when they pretty much aren't.
yeah. It's but again, like you say, going back to this militant liberalism, where they're actually walking around with the open carry rifles and pistols and shotguns and fucking catapults and crossbows or whatever they're fucking walking around with. It's going to get to the point where there's another bike lock incident where this time it's not a bike lock, it's a fucking 7.62, 5.56, whatever caliber round going down the fucking high street in Ohio or fucking Jacksonville, Florida or fucking Kentucky. You know what I mean? And it strikes somebody, a fucking human being, be it a part of an opposing group, a fucking right wing group, a nationalist group, maybe it's a part of one of the law enforcement, or whether it's just a bystander. And that's then up that game. That's precedent set. You know, okay, so you think it's okay to start fucking putting rounds down the street? Well, guess what? We're going to come out with our weapons, and the chances are the guys on the other side of the fucking fence, the pro Second Amendment, have had time behind those weapons, both sporting in a sporting
Years of
capacity,
time.
be it as a hobby shooter or be it as ex-military law enforcement, you know, who are trained to a fucking higher standard than most of these liberal fucking fools will ever be. And not just as a lone shooter, they can communicate and work as a group. So does fucking the left wing really want to go there? And then you're talking about civil unrest. You're coming about, and I won't say civil war because war is all out war. You know what I mean? If a civil war in the states,
No
to
sane
me,
person
is
wants to see that, right?
no, no, no. A civil war is nationwide. It's not just a fucking small conflict thing. So we'll call it civil unrest. Civil unrest on one side can be easily quenched. You know, you look at the situation. Forgive my ignorance, but I remember a couple of years ago there was I know it was in the southern states where there was a standoff between government and a private landowner, and I understand he had a lot of cattle or something like that, and they were trying to take his land from him for some other
Yeah, it
reasons.
was in the Southwest, right?
Yeah, yeah, and obviously you had a lot of not just in his circle, but a lot of nationwide national supporters travelling down there with their firearms, obviously as legally as possible, crossing state lines and stuff
Well,
like
no,
that.
some of them were federal infiltrators. Just being, I got to be very blank when look,
Yeah,
and that was under Obama, and honestly, that entire situation went out of control because it was allowed to go out of control, and it was actually fostered by the federal government. And that was, you and I talked about this briefly and brushed on it during a time when, I was working a different kind of thing, and you know what was up at that time, trying to
yeah,
unmask a fucking cunt. But um, it was more personal to me because dude's trying to steal my identity. Uh, and, I handled that. That's just how that happened. Uh, but the more interesting thing is how many, dude, I'm looking at pictures and I'm seeing faces. Faces don't lie, especially when you get to know how to look at faces. And you're seeing how many people were CIs at that, confidential informants, and how many were actual badge carrying federal agents acting like they were supporting the Bundys.
Yeah.
And it was the Bundy Ranch that you're
Yeah,
talking
that was
about.
it. That was it. Yeah.
And uh, that entire standoff was manufactured, just like Gunwalker, Fast and Furious, whatever you want. Gunwalker started under Bush, and Fast and Furious was an abomination to the Bush program, but both of them should never have been started. And that's what caused the death of Brian Terry. Like I said, I will be doing a show just on this. Like I said, man, when you can, there's certain. Oh my God, there's a lot that future shows are gonna elucidate because it really pisses me off that. Okay, here's a question for you, brother, and you know this, and I know this. You swear to your queen, right?
Yeah.
In your oath, right? And I swore
Yeah.
to my constitution, right?
Yeah.
Um, if your queen, you could point to something she did, or the royals, would that not absolutely destroy and break your heart? And you would be like, why am I even doing this? Why did I? Your oath doesn't end. Here's the thing: your oath does not end, but it now causes questioning
Hmm. A
and
clash, a clash of your moral self
of
in certain
honor,
things.
of honor.
Yeah.
It's that basic. It's honor, brother. And when you notice things, that's a problem because now what supersedes your house? The house of Baz, just like the house of Shuff. What supersedes honor? Absolutely nothing. And if it does, then we never knew honor. And that is the important thing. I'll let you, I want you to ring on that because I want to hear your point of view from, look, Americans know my point of view. I want them to understand from your oath what that would do to you more than I want them to know what it would do to me.
Yeah, it's like say you swear your allegiance to the Constitution. We swear our oath of allegiance to the Queen. The Queen is our living Constitution, if you know what I mean. She is, I won't call her a fucking supreme being, but she is our Constitution. She doesn't meddle in everyday political bullshit. You know what I mean? That's why we have our Parliament. That's what they fucking do. We swear our allegiance to her. She doesn't turn around and say, "I want this to happen. I want this to happen." You know, it's the idea. It's that standard that you live to. Uh, it's not her as a person. It's again, it's that idea of our living
The
constitution.
idea and the ideal.
Yeah, that she stands the Queen. When we swear allegiance to the Queen, we swear allegiance to the Queen and everything she encompasses, the United Kingdom and the Commonwealth. You know what I mean? You invade the Commonwealth before you know it, you've got fucking X amount of thousand fucking infantrymen smashing your door in and fucking bayoneting you in the face. You know, it's
Think Falkland Islands.
yeah. Again, you look at that. The Falkland Islands are British. 99.9% of them said they want to remain British. The Argentinians turned around and said, fucking the British aren't going to come all the way down here and fucking do anything. So let's go and capture the fucking small contingent of Marines that they had there. So they sent in a fucking
Surprise!
amphibious, yeah, they sent in the special forces and the amphibious Marines to capture these guys. And before you knew it, you've got a fucking carrier group coming down there with UK Special Forces, the Marines, and the Paras, you know what I mean, amongst others. And you know what I mean? Even though we were still outnumbered, we still smashed the living fuck out the Argentinians. And
Yep.
they need to keep remembering that because they're still to this day crying about Malvinas, Las Malvinas, what they call the Falkland Islands. And again, nobody wishes war, but I wish a motherfucker would, you know,
Yeah,
because they need spanking again. We've come forward 2 generations, 3 generations of warfare. In fact, 4 generations in warfare. You know what I mean? They're still stuck in the fucking 1970s. They're still using the
yep.
same kit. You know what I mean? Lessons learned. Obviously, they didn't learn the fucking lesson, but that's another conversation for another day. Um, yeah, but so we swear our allegiance to the Queen. If then for some reason that allegiance was broken somehow, or that it was tarnished, you know, then again it calls into question what you do. Why am I doing this? What the fuck am I doing this for? And it's at the minute, it's more sort of, especially over here, we've got a lot of sort of witch hunting going on. Excuse me, of older soldiers again that I've mentioned on previous shows, and it is calling into question some people's sort of compass. You know what I mean? The compass of duty. They're thinking, why do I have to do this when in
Their
40
moral
years' time
compass.
I'm going to be fucking dragged in front of a court? So you know, it's like not so much the moral compass. It's like, why am I even bothering? Why don't I just become a bricklayer and fuck this shit off? Because I had this idea, these ideals that I
Yep.
wanted to fight for Queen and country, uphold the law of the United Kingdom, and all of fucking protectorates, and then all of a sudden I'm being fucking shit on for doing my job. Um, you know, so again, that's calling into question some of the things that we've done in the past. Again, and we've
And
touched on
that's
this many times
absolutely
before.
evil. Yeah.
As long as you can turn around and say, yeah, I did that, and this is the reason I did it, and I'm glad I did it, and I wouldn't change a fucking thing because it was the right thing to do
Fuck
at the
yeah.
time. In 40 years' time, don't have some fucking finger clicking, non binary, fucking bike lock swinging freak call into question what I did 40 years ago in line of duty when there was fucking bullets going two-way, or there was people bleeding around me, and or there was the threat of fucking actual physical violence to me, myself, those around me, and the civilians in the area. You know, don't call that into fucking question if you weren't there. If you're going to
Speak.
carry out, if you're going to carry out an investigation, carry the fucking thing out there and then after the incident, post incident, which always happened. Don't carry it again now, 40 years later, to appease fucking left wing governments or weak governments to swing national fucking interest or to deflect from
Elections.
going, you know, Brexit's going wrong. Let's pin this murder all these years ago on these soldiers. Let's bring that to the forefront, and hopefully this Brexit thing will just stay in the
I
fucking shadows until we've fucked it up some more. You know what I mean? Especially
I
look in the states, how that's going. You know what I mean? It's easier to bring certain things to the forefront than it is to fucking hit the main issues and fucking sort those out. Scapegoats,
yes.
narratives, and all that wank. You know what I mean?
Yes. No, I am American scapegoat, and I accepted that title. And I come shit or bleed, I will stand or fall on that. That was my choice. Nobody else knows my choice but me. I don't talk about my shit to nobody in my family. I may ancillarily talk about certain parts with you and other people, but it's during times that maybe we know the same thing about. But I do want you to speak on this abhorrent, and it's not being reported in the U.S., what they're doing to these fellows that did their duty. They did their job. They were the nation state warrior. They were not people like me. That aberration needs to be pointed out in America because honestly, our trades aren't carrying it. And please elucidate people on my channel on what's happening with these guys 40 years after a fucking war where everything was looked at back then and it's fine, but with the new paradigm, something changed and we need to go after these old 70-year-old men. I have an issue with that.
Yeah, so basically, what went on in Northern Ireland? You know, if the listeners have heard of Bloody Sunday, it was where some paratroopers had opened up on a crowd of people. Now the narrative stays that these murderous fucking renegades fucking opened up with automatic weapons on innocent fucking people and killed 10 or so innocent Catholics. What really happened was, and I hope he burns in fucking hell, Martin McGuinness, who was the Londonderry Brigade commander of the IRA, even admitted that there was gunmen at this parade, this protest, and the gunmen opened up on these paratroopers. Now, these paratroopers being highly strung because there's fucking bottles and bricks flying at them, all of a sudden get shot at by these masked hidden gunmen from in the crowd. Now, these paratroopers are not chefs. They aren't laundry operatives. They aren't fucking postmen. These are paratroopers, and their doctrine still rings true to this day. Is the sole job of an infantry soldier, paratrooper, marine, whatever, is to close with and kill the enemy through close quarter battle, or destroy the enemy through close quarter battle. You're getting shot at, and you're a frontline
Right.
soldier. You start fucking firing back. Um, a hostile crowd, you know, and yes, some people died. Should they have died? No. And this was investigated God knows how many times. And all these people were like admonished, okay, it happened, but we know what happened. We so on and so forth. Now, it was all put to bed. Now, the guys that were there are now in the 70s and 80s. Some of them, a lot of them have died, because obviously they've got older. Healthcare wasn't it
We
was
have a
back in the
finite lifespan, right?
yeah, especially as a soldier that's um, spent time in the military, especially in the 70s and 80s, where there was no health and safety involved. They were living in fucking asbestos-ridden blocks. They were exposed to God knows how many fucking chemical weapons tests and all that fucking shit that went on back there.
Yep.
Um, so a lot of these guys have just died over the time, but the ones that are left are now being fucking hunted down and brought in front of courts to start appeasing. And I tell you what, and again,
Like the
it's just
Nazi witch hunt. They're
yeah,
treating them like
yes,
they were fucking Nazi criminals.
yeah. Now it all comes down to this Brexit thing. Now, obviously, if we do leave the European Union, the Republic of Ireland, that isn't part of the UK, you've got Northern Ireland, which is part of the UK, but the Republic of Ireland has nothing to do with the United Kingdom. It's a republic of its own.
It's their own republic, right?
Now they're saying Europe, the WTO saying if you come out of the European Union, it needs to be a hard border. Okay, between now that's like saying you've got to have a hard border round Ohio. You know what I mean? And think of the dramas that'd cause. You know what I mean? That you need a certain
Hey, we
passport to get
we
into it.
we got a river and we got two borders that are long, and then we got a lake, a great lake. And honestly, um, I don't think honestly we have Pennsylvania, Indiana, Kentucky, West Virginia, West by God Virginia. Yeah, I'm gonna throw some shit out, and also, you know, uh, I just don't see a problem. We would have to make deals with those different states to erect walls, which to the south we wouldn't have a problem. It'd be once we got to Illinois. Um, Honestly, that's problematic.
Yeah, it's more the principle I'm on
Yeah,
about. You know what I mean?
right.
Think of those people on the border of Ohio that might work in Pennsylvania or work in, you know what I mean, the neighboring state that they cross the state line every day. All of a sudden they're saying, right, you can't do that because now you need a hard border. You know what I mean? That you're gonna have to come through this checkpoint every single day, and you're gonna need certain work visas and so on and so forth. So
Passes.
yeah, it's the fucking government are sort of flapping. So it's like, right, how do we appease these fucking people? Because obviously the Catholics are going, nah, fuck off, fuck off. It's they're after a united Ireland, and this sets even more. You know what I mean? At the height of the Troubles, it was an open border. You know what I mean? There was, you know what I mean, border crossing points. You know what I mean? But they weren't as strict as they were, like if you think of the
Right.
Mexican border. It wasn't fucking tailed like fucking miles and miles of traffic. You know what I mean? It was just monitored, a monitored border. Um, but now they're on about hard border, which it'll kick off. It'll be the Troubles Mark Two. So
Yep.
to sort of start appeasing these Sinn Féin Republican fucking idiots. When I say Republican, I don't mean in the American sense. I'm talking in the Irish sense.
Right.
of Republican territory, like you know what I mean,
Well, let
Sinn
me
Féin, the IRA.
for the Americans that don't know, let me expand. Republicans, the IRA, Irish Republican Army. You have to understand it was backed by Teddy Kennedy, who was the author. This is one of the things I was alluding to when we were talking earlier. The IRA was backed by Teddy Kennedy, the Lion of the Senate. He's lying is right. He lied all the time. A drunk, worse than I am, worse than Bazam is. Look, we drink because of what we've had to do for our country. But the reality is that man drank because of Chappaquiddick and him killing a woman who had a baby in her belly from him, and he wasn't man enough to sack up and be a man. And the Kennedys, I have a problem with it. You know how the Kennedy fortune was formed? I'm going to tell you, Baz. They were bootlegging liquor from Canada, where it was still legal when we had our unfortunate time where we made liquor illegal, and it started in Ohio, Westerville, Ohio, by Carrie A. Nation. That was actually her name. And she started this entire project that made, oh, well, you just shouldn't have alcohol in America. And the Kennedys and other people made so much money by bootlegging it across the border from everywhere. Liquor still flowed, and it caused a repeal of that amendment. And it's, man, there's just so many things they did that I wish I could tell you, but I don't want to because we're on live. And but I will back brief you on the Kennedys. Man, they call it Republican. It was for a reason because when they actually started the IRA, a Republican was president, and it made it seem like our president was backing that project, and it was to make him look bad to England. It was black propaganda.
Yeah, well, like I say on that, it was again, it was an element of ignorance as well. That it was, they wanted to free these oppressed people, and like I said, I did mention it on an earlier show where one of the Kennedy brothers went to Belfast, and he was doing sort of a press conference, and he was going to see what was happening in the streets, and there was all these
It was
fucking,
Teddy.
yeah, these Sinn Féin representatives around him, and there was a young British soldier sort of like kneeling next to a wall, I mean, taking cover, and Teddy Kennedy walked up to him, and in front of the cameras, turned around and said, "Young soldier, when are you going to go home and leave these people be?" And the soldier turned around and went, "I am fucking home. I live 4 streets up." You know what I mean? It showed that ignorance that this was a war fight. There was a war that was fought on the streets of the UK, and people were some of the young guys, especially from the Royal Irish Regiment, or back then it was the
Yep.
Ulster Defence Regiment. These were guys from Belfast that were fighting this war in the back gardens against people that went to school against. You know what I mean? So you can imagine that these people were wearing masks, but they know who you were. So yeah, it was fucking crazy time, mate. Crazy fucking time.
Well, keep going
So
on about those 70 and 80-year-old people because this needs, I'll bring something up called Kent State. And after you're done.
yeah, so these guys were investigated numerous times, both by civilian. Well, at first it was by the military, but obviously Sinn Féin said, "Well, the military it's going to protect itself, so on and so forth." So they turned around and went, "Okay, then we'll have it done by the Northern Irish Police, which back then was the RUC." The RUC then investigated it and said, "Yeah, we've done this investigation. This is what happened. There's elements of blame on both sides." And then it was put to bed, you know. And then the Good
Right.
Friday peace agreement came about, where all these fucking lizards in that had been blowing people up and killing soldiers and civilians were given a free pass by our left wing Blair led government, you know. And all these people, they might have killed 6 people in a fucking bombing, and they might have done 8 months in prison. And all of a sudden, they've got a letter of, they called them letters of comfort, where it was basically
Right.
saying this letter of comfort says, "Look, we know what you've done wrong. You did X amount of months in prison. you are now freed under this Good Friday peace agreement, saying that we'll release all fucking interned prisoners under the guise that they don't be naughty again, and we won't chase you up. So be a good cunt, don't be a bad cunt, or we might reopen some files. Those files were probably
Right.
fucking burned. They were burned, mate. But all of a sudden, that you've got all these fucking absolute creatures, these assholes that are fucking killed children, blew innocent people up, protected, where these same protections weren't afforded to the people out there actually doing a job under the guise of Queen and country. So there's this really sort of sting at the minute that those that were sent to protect that might have right or wrong pulled the trigger or carried out some action that have answered under many investigations
Right.
the questions they need to be asking. But the people that were actually doing the killing and the mutilation, the maiming, are free and they're no longer going to be questioned. Where those
Never
again,
had to
those
answer. Right.
yeah, where those soldiers are now being fucking harassed, harangued, and brought in front of court. And there's something just happened today in the past few hours that I'll touch on in a second. But again, it's calling into question the sanctity of being a veteran and the sanctity of one's duty. That you're not being protected anymore by the government that you once served, and it fucking stinks. It absolutely stinks. And only today, it was sort of a solidarity that everybody. I mean, we had what was called a million veteran march up and down the country, and it's going to happen again, where all these veterans turned out to march in protest of the treatment of Soldier F. Um, and this old paratrooper that's getting actually hauled in front of court for murder. And there's actually a parallel running investigation into this Ballymurphy massacre. Now, the Ballymurphy, for those that don't know, many people don't, is one of the most fucking disgusting places on earth. Okay, it's a housing estate that looks very much like the Pentagon. You know what I mean? It's in this sort of Pentagon shape. We call it the Bull Ring because it's like a pentagon within a pentagon within a pentagon, and it's a stronghold of republicanism and the IRA within West Belfast. And there was a massacre that went on there so many years ago, again back in the 70s. Um, and there's another investigation running along the witch hunting, and there's one of these old soldiers who just happened to be an officer has just actually wrapped in. He's just fucking folded and said, "Look, I couldn't control these paratroopers. They were all rogue." So he's gone against the grain and basically saved his own fucking skin. And that's just happened today. So there's a massive outcry of him. You know what I mean? Basically turning his back on his comrades. But all that's going to do now is add fuel to this fire of this. Right, we need to find more of these old people to fucking prosecute. Yeah, you might be on a fucking air tank or dying of fucking emphysema, but we're going to drag you in front of a court and prosecute you for something that you did 40 years ago that you probably can't remember yourself. But we've got one side of this story from somebody's mother that was there, who she's been told off all these other Republican idiots that that soldier just executed this fucking young innocent boy in the streets. A young innocent boy that might have been throwing bricks or holding a fucking armor light rifle 10 minutes previously. You know what I mean? So it's
Right.
a
Like
massive
Iraq.
yeah, it's a massive sort of thing at the minute in the UK, and again because it's not left wing and stuff like that, it's not being looked at favourably. Like the Million Veteran March was a fucking huge march, and it happened a few days after this. They just had a massive sort of like left wing ecological environmental march in the UK that led to a fucking hundreds of arrests. The litter, consider that the protesting for the environment. They left several tons of fucking litter on and stuff like that, caused so much damage, which was massively covered by the media. Like, oh, look at this really good thing that these people are doing. But then it was ever so many tens of thousands of veterans turn out. You know what I mean? In blazers, in
Yep.
the headdress, wearing medals, wasn't even fucking touched on by mainstream media in the UK.
No one,
You know what I mean?
in the West, nobody cares about medals. This is really why I left federal service and all that other bullshit. Is I realized this. Well, actually, I realized it during the Gulf War when I got the medals. They meant nothing to me. It was about the people I served with, and they were good people. And I love how you brought this up, brother, because every day I'm shuffling. You know, every day I'm shuffling, shuffling, shuffling. You know that song, right?
Yeah.
But guess what? It's part of my name, right? but the funny part to me, look, you guys are we're gonna wrap this show up because it's gonna take forever to upload. You might get it at 11 o'clock tonight. If you get it earlier, I'll be online. Baz will probably be online, but UK time, his time. Um, the more important part is he has brought something to light. And guess what? That will come to the U.S. Look, I had the privilege, and I mean this when I say this. Kent State, Ohio, I brought that up earlier. Um, when I went into the National Guard after I got out of the Marine Corps, and I was just a M-Day soldier, a guy going 1 week in a month, 2 weeks out of the year, right? Like what you guys call the what do you guys call them? The
Reservists.
you're
Reservists now.
reservists, but you guys had a different name back then.
Back then, it was our territorial army.
Territorials, TAs, yeah. That's the one I remember back from working with Blackie. So, anyways, these guys, I had the privilege to know 4 guys that were at Kent State. And there were others in the 73rd Infantry Brigade separate. There were separate infantry brigades. It's now what you, if you're a younger troop and you listen to my program, it's now called a BCT, a Brigade Combat Team. We were the nexus of that, and if you look it up or you want more clarification, I will do an entire show to tell you the difference. The logistical tell is the difference. But the point being is there were more people in that unit, and they were all older. Remember, I was 20-something out of the Marine Corps, 24. It was 24 because 3 years Army, 4 years Marine Corps. Yeah, I was 24. So here's the thing. Those guys are in their 70s and 80s. And if you listen to Neil Young, For Dead in Ohio, well, you'd think, those 4 students that were killed, oh, man, they were killed for nothing. They were just protesting. Nah, they were starting to burn down buildings. They tried to burn down the ROTC building. They were going after, I think, the student union. There were several other places they were going after with arson. What's the job of a National Guard? Protect the citizens. The nouns, person, places, and things. And they happened to just come off some training, and they had live rounds. And out of a panic after being hit, just like Baz said, those people in Belfast and the different places that things happen, you're going to get hit with, I've been hit with a lot of shit. Frozen water bottles, people throwing shit balloons, all kinds of shit. Piss, what do you call that? Where they put them in a Ziploc bag, a piss bag. It's happened, been maced, whatever. I just happen to carry an umbrella like Mary Poppins all through it, man. That's kind of what I do. Because I know what the reality of a thing like that is. As Baz does too. But guess what? A 70 or 80-year-old man does not need hunted down. Let him live out his life. Don't bother him. He's a private citizen. He did it for his country. And you fucks that go after these people. If I have, honestly, Baz, you can chime in if you want to before I shut this down. If you want to go after somebody, go after me. Because I'm still young enough at 50 that I will put a fucking whoop on your ass like you've never seen. But you go after an 80-year-old man, I'll be standing out in front of his house. 70-year-old man, he ain't got shit to worry about. You don't get to win this one. You bitches, sit the fuck down. Pay attention and respect your elders. Not me. I'm 50. You might be 20. I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about the 70 and 80-year-olds. You fuck with them. That's where my hatred lies. Go on and say something if you want, brother.
Yeah, it's fucking. It's a dangerous game that these people are playing. You know what I mean? It's not just personally, but when it comes to you're messing with the sanctity of duty of your nation's defence. If that's called into question by you, it's going to be called into question by them. So the next time you want them to put a magazine in their weapon, charge their weapon, start putting fucking high velocity bits of metal into other human beings, there's going to be that. Am I doing the right thing here? Am I putting this round down range into this cunt? Even though he's been a cunt, am I going to be fucking held accountable for it when when I've got grandchildren? When I should be thinking about living out my days in peace before I take my final breath? Am I going to have some fucking some asshole knocking on the door that comes from a law firm that's basically chasing fees? You know what I mean? Because that's all it
Yep.
is. It's fucking fee chasing or the appeasement of left wing fucking weaklings in Parliament or to cover up some other fuck up that they've done this week. So it's just the expense of an old veteran who's last time he polished his medals was to go to a remembrance parade where once he was standing next to 60 of his fucking brothers. Now he's standing next to three because that's all that's
Yep.
left. And the only thing that he's got left in his final days is enjoying time with his family. But now he's being hauled in front of a court of law. I'm not going to call it a court of law, a fucking kangaroo court, a court of appeasement to to to, to answer questions that
A
is answered
court of
probably
cunts. A court
yeah,
of cunts. Let's call it from now on, bro. It's a court of cunts. It's
a cunt
cunts
court.
that a cunt court. They thank you. You corrected me beautifully. It's a cunt court that I'm telling you, man. Oh, this hits so close to home.
It's disgusting. And if there's ever fucking civil unrest, and like we said earlier, we shouldn't want civil unrest. But if there's ever a cause for civil unrest, this is it. You know, where it's the sanctity of duty, the sanctity of those who have fought and lost and sacrificed so much. But it's now like we don't give a fuck about that sacrifice. We don't give a fuck about what you've done, as in what you've lost or what you've sacrificed to get us to where we're at nowadays, where we can turn around and have the option to fucking hunt you down, drag you out of your care home
Yeah.
with all your medicines, and drag you in a fucking court of law. We want you to be fucking suited and booted as well. But the chances are you're going to do that already because you're a fucking proud soldier or a proud marine or a proud airman. You're going to be wearing your medals with pride because you've earned those medals. Not just because you've earned those medals, but those medals represent all those that are no longer there around you. And you're going to
Right.
stand there and you're going to go, I've answered these questions before. What more do you want? And it's so they can go, you're guilty of this, and we're going to put you in prison. So
They
that
want
that
that last pint of blood.
yeah, I'll fucking drop a sweat, and I'll be careful what I say. In fact, fuck it. You want civil unrest? That's how you're going to fucking get it. You know, if it's like them taking away the Second Amendment, we're going to come for your guns. It's that sanctity that's been protected. You know what I mean? Shall not be infringed. And I think that applies to veterans that have carried out their duties. Now, don't get me wrong. If this guy had walked into a crowd of people and just fucking machine gunned them all down, then
We'd
yes,
both be pissed.
yeah. But when it's there's been investigations and investigations, and there's been you know what I mean, both sides admonished. That's it. It's fucking done with. To be dragged up again, but so I wouldn't be bothered. Or I would be, but I'd still be pissed. But if both sides were fucking hauled into court, but it's not. It's up one side. Those fucking assholes that kill children and maim people. You know, and the things I could tell you that the IRA did in West Belfast that I saw with my own two eyes.
Yep.
You mean you would think that it was fucking Mosgrad or fucking Srebrenica or
Some
Sarajevo.
third or second world country.
I'm talking Bosnia 1992
Right.
type shit. You know what I mean? That I saw these fucking assholes do to certain people. You know, the use of power drills, the use of fucking hammers and stuff like that on their own citizens.
I know
You know,
of one person, a brother of mine, who witnessed this. And this was in Sarajevo, okay? A police chief. His wife was raped and her throat beheaded and just thrown into the living room after they were done with her. And guess what happened to his little son? He was pinned what we call a closet over here, which it's a swing door that leads to another room. But in Europe, closets are a smaller thing. They're like a what we would call a
a cupboard.
dresser. Yeah, a
Yeah, dresser.
cupboard.
Wardrobe.
And they had taken a Kalashnikov bayonet through this like 5-year-old kid and pinned him to that dresser door. And that's a real experience from a brother of mine. I love him to death. Anyways, I'm not going to get deep into him, but that's not my experience. That's his. And so if you think you know the evil men will do, oh, fuckers, wake up. Because you have no idea. And honestly, folks on my channel, if you're offended by this one, hopefully you had fun in the beginning. If you delete me at the end from your YouTube, I'm not going to have any heartburn over that. I mean that. Because we're spitting truth, and I will stand and fall on every word I've spoken. You take it away, Baz. I want you to close it out. You try to make it a positive thing on the end, because at this point I am so pissed on certain things, and I don't want to get into it. We'll talk after the show. All right. God bless.
Okay, brother. Thank you, brother. Yeah, so it's that protection of sanctity that we need to look at these days, and not just our veterans of our fucking society. Um, and this division bell can't be unrung. It's there's and what I said to Shuff before the show, there seems to be that there's two sides to this argument, and one side is on both sides of our ocean. Yeah, I'll put it in US terms. You've got sort of the pro second um, Trump voters that some sit on the fringes of fucking um, white pride groups, whether they're the Aryan Brotherhood or whatever. You mean you know where I'm coming from with this, where they sit on one like the very sort of extreme edge, and then there's those that've got a brain between their ears and see President Trump for what he is. Does he come up with some shit? He comes up with some shit, but does he come up with some fucking wisdom and some good for the country? He fucking right he does. You know what I mean? I can see that as a Brit of what he's done for your nation that it wasn't done under your last administration. Um, you know, and there's that side of this defence, the Republican, I would not say right wing side, but right of centre side, and then there's obviously the left wing side, your Antifa, your stereotypical bike lock swinging professor, your multi-haired, multi-gendered left wing anti-vaxxer. Um, you know what I mean? And then your average soccer mom that wants to fucking vote for Bernie, Hillary, or whoever, socialist under the covers, and what everything that's trickling out from either side, it's all diluted just by shit. And there's this big pond in the middle, and this pond is social media and mainstream media, and it seems to be all the shit that's diluted and misconstrued and different dichotomies and stuff like that. It all ends up in this pond that people are feeding off, and that seems to be society. This pond is society, you know. And this is what people are wallowing in this stuff, and it's until we drain this pond or drain the swamp, as people like to fucking bang about in the political circles, and start, you know what I mean, picking out the shit and putting truths down there. And the only way that's going to happen is by sitting down and speaking to one another, which just doesn't happen because people would rather shout over one another. And it seems to be the left that are very good at this, that they try and shout over or they won't listen. And this doesn't help things. No one's No one ever stands back and go, okay, I've just been shouted out and drowned out, so I'm just going to walk away. It emboldens people. It makes them want to speak even more. And then it pushes them towards those fringes, thinking, I've tried to do it the civil way. I've tried to do it the normal way as a civilized, socially acceptable fucking human being that I've tried to get my opinion across because I don't have a voice in a chamber. I'm not a part of Congress. I'm not a part of. I'm not a member of Parliament or a senator or anything like that. So the only way I can get this across is by town meetings or marches and stuff like this. But now I'm being drowned out by people on the other side of the fence. So that's not working. So I'm going to try this instead. And then before you know it, these people are in these sort of extreme, that's not extreme, but these fringe groups where the morals of those who are actually in charge of these groups are not aligned with that why that person's there. They just want to be heard. And it's until we
Yep.
fucking start listening to these people on a level scale with no fucking hoods and masks up and bike locks under fucking coats and stuff like that. No placards on both sides of the room. I thought, fuck it, in just one big room where there's no
Yep.
sides, everybody's just sitting amongst each other, you know, and where the people have to listen to one another. You know what I mean? Give them a big talking stick. You're not allowed to talk unless you've got the fucking stick. Shut the fuck up. I've got the talking stick. You know, like they do in the old fucking Native American days when they were coming up with certain ideas. A big talking stick. No one's allowed to talk unless they've got the fucking the peace pipe. Um, and
Imagine that.
that's what it needs. But why am I saying this? I'm just some butt-fuck British soldier or ex-British soldier that eats crayons, kicks in doors, who's got fucking broken knees, broken elbows, too much back pain, eats and drinks too much. You know what I mean? I'm not the most articulate, intelligent person, but why am I fucking coming up with this shit? Why isn't someone further up the chain who gets paid a lot more money than me that makes decisions like this
It's
happen?
because you've been in the trenches. And that's the voices they want to mute. And that is why Kaiser's Castle and Baz's Castle exists. Look, for the past week, I'm going to close the show out. And I want you to have your final words. Uh, but honestly, it's going to take forever now. We've gone on 2 hours and 11 minutes. But we love this conversation. This is just you guys getting a snapshot. I hope it comes out by 11. Um, on upload, it sucks. But what I will say is, Baz is more correct. You know, I'm a crayon eating Marine. Um, I'm no better. I'm no worse than any other man. And Baz will be the first one to say he's the same. Uh, we hold inviolate certain things, and these are the three things we hold inviolate. And I think Baz won't correct me on it: honor, loyalty, and dedication. And all those three keys, if you remember those three keys, you will be successful no matter if you're working or if you're not. If you're a human being, you hold your honor first, your loyalty second, but dedication to every fucking thing you do because you will live and die on what you do. Baz, please close this out quickly, and I love you, bro.
You too, brother. Thank you. Yeah, just obviously those who are listening, I come from a different side of the pond. And if you disagree with anything I say, please fucking feel free to just message Kaiser. Obviously, I don't have my own YouTube channel, and I gladly debate, as I've just mentioned there, in an open forum or a closed forum. It's your choosing on anything I've said, or just to have a fucking chat. I'm more than happy to do that because again, healthy debate is what makes us go forward. Instead of swinging bike clocks each other and carrying open carry fucking assault weapons with the ominous threat of I'll shoot you if you fucking shoot at me. It's how we're meant to do business. So we're fucking civilized human beings at the end of the day. Also, we'd like to think it's when we aren't civilized that our side of the fence will reign supreme. That's all I'll say on that one. Brother, it's been a pleasure, and I hope to speak to you soon. those that are listening or will listen,
Yep.
a raise a drink. Stay safe. Have a good one. Buzz out.
And as Chef always says, thank you for stopping by Kaiser's Castle. You got a brief look into both of our minds. And I think we're reasonable people. Um, I will live and die on that because I know what I've done, and Baz knows what he's done. And we're just trying to give you a glimpse into why you don't want to do what you think you do, but some people think they can. And most of the time, in my past experience, it's a bad way. Always talk to a brother, always get some thought process bounce back on you because individually we fell. But when we are together and we speak, and I mean left and right, notice I didn't say individually as we speak just to the right. Stop the fucking echo chambers. If you want to, come to Kaiser's Castle. I will welcome you with open arms from either side. Just make sure those arms are empty except for a hug or a handshake. And we'll have a barbecue and we'll have a bonfire and have a good time. With that being said, I have been absent for a week because of my lung infection from Afghanistan last tour. Also, you know, just needed to unplug a little bit. Still keeping crisp on everything, but if you only knew what I inundate myself with daily for you, I will make sure to get you some more content, but this is the best content that I can provide. Hopefully, you all like it. And Drinking with Baz and Shuffy. We're all done now. Much love. Look to see you at the time of the posting of this video. I'll be there to comment. God bless. Be well. Be safe. Shuff out.